It was 3 in the morning when a knock on the door jolted me awake. Through the peephole, my neighbor, Annie Zhang, was smiling stiffly. "Xiao Wang, could I borrow some salt?" I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to open the door, but then I felt my phone vibrating in my pocket. On the screen, messages from the residents' group chat were popping up one after another. "Whatever you do, don't open your doors. Annie Zhang passed away last night. She's knocking on everyone's door." Chapter 1. The dead woman's knock 3 in the morning. He didn't so much as wake up as he was violently yanked from the deep sea to the surface. Wang Yifun's heart began to pound before his consciousness fully returned. Thump, thump, thump. It wasn't a hallucination. The sound was clear, rhythmic, and even possessed a sort of unhurried politeness as it struck his security door. In the dead silence of the early morning, the sound was exceptionally abrupt and piercing, each knock striking a nerve. Who could it be? His father? No, his wife had a key. A friend? At this hour, it would have to be the end of the world. A drunk who had the wrong door? An inexplicable chill crept up his spine. He swallowed hard, his throat dry and tight. The bedroom light was off. Only a sliver of faint light from the edge of the city filtered through the gap in the curtains, outlining the vague shapes of the furniture. He took a deep breath, swung his legs over the side of the bed as quietly as possible, his bare feet meeting the cold floor. He moved silently to the bedroom door, straining his ears to listen. Thump, thump, thump. The knocking continued, echoing stubbornly in the empty entryway. Holding his breath, he tiptoed like a cat across the living room to the front door. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He leaned in close to the cold metal of the security door and pressed his eye to the peephole. The motion-activated light in the hallway was on, casting a dim, yellow glow. Beneath the light stood a figure. It was Annie Zhang, who lived across the hall. The tension coiled inside Wang Yifun instantly loosened by half. It was someone he knew. Annie Zhang was a retired middle school teacher, a kind-hearted woman, if a bit overly enthusiastic at times, who enjoyed dropping by for a chat. Perhaps she had suddenly run out of something she urgently needed. After all, at this hour, he was just about to speak when his gaze froze on the image in the peephole, and his movement ceased. Annie Zhang didn't look like her usual self. She was wearing a dark set of clothes that looked like either pajamas or loungewear, and her hair was combed meticulously. But her face, the expression on her face was strange. She was smiling, the corners of her mouth turned up in a perfect arc, showing her teeth. But there was no warmth in the smile, and her eyes were vacant, unfocused, staring straight in the direction of the peephole. The entire smile looked as if it had been drawn on with a ruler, stiff, mechanical, and exuding an indescribable eeriness. "Xiao Wang." Auntie Zhang's voice came from outside the door, her tone flat and monotonous, betraying no hint of apology for the late-hour disturbance, nor any of the anxiety of someone in urgent need. "Are you asleep? Sorry to bother you, but I was making a late-night snack and just ran out of salt. Could you lend me some?" Borrowing salt? At 3 in the morning? The bit of ease Wang Yifun had felt vanished instantly, replaced by a deeper sense of strangeness. The excuse was too flimsy. Annie Zhang wasn't that inconsiderate. And her appearance, it was too unnatural. He opened his mouth, wanting to make an excuse to refuse, something like he was already asleep and it wasn't convenient. But looking at that stiff, smiling face in the peephole, the words caught in his throat. They were neighbors, after all. What if she really was in a pinch? Refusing directly seemed a bit harsh. His hand rose hesitantly and rested on the cold doorknob. The metallic touch sent a jolt through him, just as his fingertips were about to apply pressure and turn the lock. A series of intense vibrations came from his outer thigh. It was his phone. He had a habit of keeping it in his pajama pocket before bed. Who would be calling or texting him this late? The sudden interruption made him pause. He instinctively pulled his hand back from the lock and took out his phone. The screen was blindingly bright. It wasn't a call, but a WeChat message. On the screen, the icon for the community residence group, which had several hundred members, showed a bright red 99 plus for unread messages. Why was the group so active this late? A sense of foreboding, like a cold vine, instantly wrapped around his heart. His fingers trembling slightly, he opened the group chat. Messages flooded the screen like an explosion, with the latest ones still pushing their way to the top. 703, Mrs. Lin. At everyone, do not open your doors. No matter what, don't open them. 1102, Brother Chong. Damn it. Is this for real? I think I heard a knock too. I didn't dare to look. 502, Xiao Mei. I look through the peephole. It's Annie Zhang. She's smiling. It's so scary. 903, Old Joe. Call the police. Call the police. 307, Dr. Zhao. Everyone calm down. Stay quiet. Don't respond. At 703, Mrs. Lin, are you sure? 703, Mrs. Lin. I'm sure. Absolutely positive. My husband works at the hospital. He just got a call confirming it. Auntie Zhang. Annie Zhang had a sudden heart attack last night. They couldn't revive her. She's gone. 1102, Brother Chong. Fuck. 502, Xiao Mei. Horrified emoji then. Then who is knocking on the door outside right now? 903, Old Joe. A ghost. Wang Yifan couldn't read the messages that followed. He only felt a chill shoot up from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, as if all the blood in his body had frozen solid. The light from his phone screen illuminated his bloodless face. A cold sweat broke out in an instant, soaking his thin pajamas. Auntie Zhang passed away last night. Then, what was that thing standing outside his door right now, looking at him through the peephole with that stiff smile, asking to borrow salt? He abruptly pressed his eye to the peephole again. Outside the door, Annie Zhang was still standing there, maintaining that rigid smile, motionless like a wax figure placed on display. The dim, yellow light cast deep shadows on her face, making the smile appear even more eerie and chilling. Xiao Wang, the voice from outside, spoke again, still in that flat tone, devoid of any emotion. Open the door. I just want to borrow some salt. It'll be quick. Thud, thud, thud. The knocking started again, not too heavy, not too light, its rhythm suffocatingly regular. As if scalded, Wang Yifan recoiled violently, his back slamming hard against the cold wall with a dull thud. He clamped his hand tightly over his mouth to keep from screaming. Fear, like a cold tide, washed over him, threatening to drown him. Time seemed to stretch into infinity at that moment. Leaning against the cold wall, Wang Yifan slowly slid to the floor, his legs too weak to support him. The phone was still clutched in his hand, its screen having gone dark from inactivity, but the words from the WeChat group were seared into his mind like a red-hot brand. Auntie Zhang is dead. The thing outside the door isn't human. Just now, he had almost, by a fraction of a second, personally opened this door to an unknown horror. Cold sweat trickled down from his temples and into his eyes, causing a stinging pain, but he didn't dare raise a hand to wipe it away. All his senses were focused on the thing outside the door. After he had stumbled back and hit the wall, the knocking had paused for about 10 seconds. Then it began again. Thud, thud, thud. The same frequency, the same force. It seemed indifferent to the noise inside, stubbornly repeating its request to borrow salt over and over. Wang Yifan forced himself to calm down. Fear wouldn't solve anything. He took several deep breaths, trying to quiet his pounding heart, and once again crept cautiously toward the peephole. Annie Zhang was still standing there, her posture unchanged. The stiff smile on her face looked grotesquely large and terrifying through the peephole's distorted view. Her eyes were still vacant, but Wang Yifan had a strong feeling. She knew he was watching. She might even have been observing him inside through the peephole all along. He jerked his gaze away, not daring to look again. He huddled behind the door, his ears pricked, catching the faintest sounds from outside. Besides the rhythmic knocking and Annie Zhang's flat inquiries, he thought he could also hear an extremely faint sound of rustling fabric and something like the sound of something wet being dragged across the floor. No, maybe it was his imagination. Auditory hallucinations brought on by extreme fear. He turned on his phone, the screen's light once again piercing the darkness. He switched it to silent mode and quickly typed in the residence group chat. 1501 Wang Yifan. At everyone, I'm Wang Yifan from 1501. Auntie Zhang. It's right outside my door now. It keeps knocking. What the hell is going on? Can someone confirm that Annie Zhang really passed away? The moment the message was sent, replies came pouring in. 703 Mrs. Lin. At 1501. Wang Yifan Xiao Wang. Whatever you do, don't open the door. It's absolutely true. My husband is on duty at the hospital. He saw her with his own eyes. The death certificate has been issued. Several neighbors in our building have gotten a knock from her. 1102 Brother Chong. At 1501. Wang Yifan, hang in there, man. It knocked on my door for a while, then it seemed to leave. Damn, my legs are still jelly. 502 Xiao Mei. At 1501. Wang Yifan, is it still there? It knocked on my door too just now. That smile is terrifying. I was too scared to make a sound. It left after a little while. 903 Old Joe. Called the police. The police said they're on their way. But they told us to make sure we're safe first, lock the doors, and don't make a sound. 307 Dr. Zhao. At 1501. Wang Yifan, stay calm, don't provoke it. According to feedback from other neighbors, if it doesn't get a response, it might leave on its own after a while. Make sure your doors and windows are securely locked. Leave on its own. A glimmer of hope appeared for Wang Yifan. He stared intently at his phone screen, while nervously listening to the sounds outside the door. The knocking continued. Little Wang, open the door. Just borrowing a little salt. The voice repeated over and over, like a broken record player, tormenting his frayed nerves in the dead of the early morning. Time ticked by second. Every second felt as long as a century. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The knocking seemed to actually be getting sparser. The force behind it also seemed a little lighter. Just as Wang Yifan thought it was about to give up, the knocking stopped abruptly. Outside the door, a dead silence fell. Is it gone? Wang Yifan didn't dare move, even quieting his breathing to the faintest whisper. He pricked up his ears, listening carefully. No footsteps. Nothing. It was as if Annie Zhang had vanished in a thin air. He waited for a full 2 or 3 minutes, and there was still no sound from outside. A vast silence enveloped him, but this silence was more unsettling than the continuous knocking from before. He summoned all the courage he had in his life, and trembling once again, slowly brought his eye to the peephole. Through the peephole's view, the hallway was empty. The voice-activated lights, having been without sound for a long time, had also gone out. Pitch blackness. Is it really gone? Wang Yifan nearly collapsed to the floor in exhaustion. After the immense fear came a sense of powerlessness, like surviving a disaster. He leaned against the door, gasping for breath, only then realizing his entire body was soaked in a cold sweat. He picked up his phone, wanted to tell everyone in the group chat that it was gone. Just then, plop, an extremely faint, viscous sound came from outside the door, like a drop of thick liquid falling onto the doormat. Wang Yifan's body instantly froze. Immediately after, an extremely subtle, indescribable smell began to seep in from under the door, thread by thread. It was a mixture of the disinfectant smell of formalin and a faint, unutterable scent of decay. Wang Yifan's stomach churned. He violently pressed his eye against the peephole again. His knuckles turned white from the force. The voice-activated light in the hallway was not on. It was pitch black outside. He couldn't see anything, but the smell was undeniably real, reminding him that everything that had just happened was not a nightmare. That Annie Zhang might not have really left. It might just be standing quietly, silently outside the door in that deep darkness, with that stiff, smiling face staring at him through this thin door panel. I think it's gone. Wang Yifan sent this message in the group chat, his fingers still trembling uncontrollably. He didn't mention the strange sound or the weird smell seeping under the door, afraid of causing another panic, or attracting the attention of the thing outside that might not be far away. 1102 Brother Chong. Gone? That's great. Thank God. 502 Xiao Mei at 1501. Wang Yifan, it's good that it's gone. Good that it's gone. I almost fainted from fear just now. 903 Old Joe. Why aren't the police here yet? What kind of efficiency is this? The brief sense of relief didn't last long. 401 Sister Lou. At everyone. It's outside my door now. It's knocking too. Asking for salt. My God. It's really knocking on every single door. 801 Mr. Chun. At 401. Sister Lou, stay calm. Don't make a sound. Don't open the door. Fear, like a plague, spread rapidly through the silent building via invisible radio waves. The messages in the group exploded again, as residents from different floors and different units reported similar encounters. The thing wearing Annie Zhang's face was tirelessly and methodically knocking on one door after another, repeating that deathly phrase, borrowing a little salt. Wang Yifan slid down to the floor, his back against the door panel, feeling cold all over. It hadn't left the building. It was continuing its visits. He had just been one stop on its long list. Time passed slowly in the extremely oppressive atmosphere. The sky outside was still pitch dark. Dawn seemed hopelessly far away. 601 Fong Fong. At everyone, something's not right. Do you guys hear anything? Besides the knocking. 1002 Dapeng. What sound? It just left my side. I wasn't paying attention. 601 Fong Fong. Sounds like a lot of people walking. Very faint, but a lot of them. Right in the hallway. Fong Fong's message made Wang Yifan's heart sink. He held his breath, pressing his ear tightly against the cold surface of the door, try to filter out the sound of his own thunderous heartbeat. At first, there was only dead silence. But gradually, he began to catch some extremely faint, jumbled sounds. They came from a distance, from somewhere upstairs or downstairs. It wasn't the footsteps of a single person, but many. So many. The sound of countless, tiny, shuffling steps, like feet wrapped in wet cloth dragging across the floor. They seemed to have no clear destination, merely wandering aimlessly in the hallway, interspersed with the occasional, almost inaudible knock on a door, or a murmur or two, indistinct and low. There was more than one Auntie Zhang in this building. The thought, like a venomous snake, coiled instantly around his heart. Was it possible that more than just Annie Zhang had died, or rather, turned into one of these monsters? Or was Auntie Zhang's phenomenon spreading? The messages in the group chat began to confirm this terrifying suspicion. 302 Annie's son. Oh my God. I think I saw my husband walking in the living room. But he's definitely asleep in the bedroom. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? 1201 Xiao Li. At everyone, urgent situation. My roommate was woken up by a knock on the door. He was half asleep and tried to go open it, but I desperately stopped him. But he's not right now. His eyes are vacant, and he won't speak. He just keeps staring at the door. Imitation? Contagion? Or some kind of bizarre replacement? Panic flooded the group chat like a bursting dam. Some began to send frantic voice messages, their voices choked with tears. Some typed incoherently, their messages riddled with typos. Others began to frantically at property management and the police, demanding to know why no one had arrived yet. 903 Lao Zhou. Damn it. The property management's line is busy. I can't get through. 307 Dr. Zhao. Everyone, stay calm. Try to stay in a sealed space, away from doors and windows. Wait for rescue. Do not attempt to communicate with whatever is outside or with any suspicious person. Rescue? If the police and rescue teams came in, would they also? Wang Yifan dared not think any further. He looked around his own home, what was once a safe and warm nest, but now felt like a trap, besieged from all sides. Every wall, every window, suddenly seemed unreliable. The faint footsteps and whispers seemed to be everywhere, closing in from all directions. He struggled to his feet, checked the locks on all the windows, and drew the heavy curtains, as if that could shut out the world that was steadily collapsing outside. Then, he retreated to the center of the living room, far from any potential connection to the outside. He curled up behind the sofa, clutching his phone, his only lifeline. Just then, a new message popped up on his private WeChat. Sando, Lao Wan, his wife. Message. Yifan, I'm almost at the complex. Is the garage elevator stopped? It's not responding no matter how I press it. Wang Yifan's pupils constricted. The blood rushed to his head. Lao Wang was on the night shift tonight. She had no idea what was happening in the building. She was coming back. His fingers trembled so violently he could barely hold the phone as he frantically dialed her number. Beep, beep, beep. The long, agonizing rings, each one hammering on his last nerve. Pick up the phone. Come on, pick up. Finally, the call connected. Hello, Yifan. I'm almost at the main entrance. It's strange, the gate seems to be Lao Wang's voice, tinged with exhaustion and confusion, came through the receiver. "Don't come in!" Wang Yifan hissed into the phone, his voice a low roar, distorted by extreme fear. "Lao Wang, listen to me. Do not, under any circumstances, enter the building. Turn around. Now. Immediately. Leave the complex. The farther, the better." "What? Yifan, what's wrong with you? What happened?" Lao Wang was startled by his violent reaction. "There are monsters in the building. The dead Annie Zhang is going door to door, knocking. There are other things. Don't ask questions, just go." Wang Yifan was incoherent, desperately trying to convey the danger without being loud enough to draw attention. There was a moment of silence on the other end, as if she was stunned by the unbelievable news. Then, a note of tension entered Lao Wang's voice. "Yifan, don't scare me. Are you okay? Are you still at home? I'm Fine. The door is locked, but you can't come in. I'm begging you. Please, just go." Wang Yifan was practically pleading. Okay, don't panic. Right now, I'll just... Old Wang's words were suddenly cut off. An ear-piercing static like signal interference crackled through the receiver, interspersed with a stiff, flat female voice that Wang Yifan was all too familiar with. It seemed to be speaking very close to the microphone. "Little Wang. Salt." Immediately after, the phone was abruptly hung up. "Old Wang. Old Wang." Wang Yifan yelled frantically into his phone, but only a cold dial tone answered him. He tried calling back, but the call wouldn't go through. A vast, icy despair, like an invisible hand, seized his throat. Old Wang. What had he encountered? Outside? He lunged towards the living room window, recklessly pulling back a corner of the curtain to look down. In the dim light of the neighborhood street lamps, he could vaguely see Old Wang's familiar little white car parked not far from the building. The driver's side door seemed to be open. Beside the car, there was no one. Only a few blurry figures, their movements seemingly stiff, were in the shadows below, slowly, aimlessly, wandering. Old Wang was missing. This news, like the final straw, nearly broke Wang Yifan. He collapsed beneath the window, his mind a blank slate. Immense grief and fear intertwined, leaving him without even the strength to tremble. Those wandering figures outside, the open cart, door downstairs, and that bizarre final borrow salt on the phone call. They tore at his nerves again and again. Is it over? Is everything over? The phone screen was still lit, messages in the residents' group chat scrolling by in desperation. 802 Teacher Wu. It's no use. They seem to be trying to pry open the door. I can hear the sound of metal scraping. Help! 601 Fong Fong. I see it out the window. In the garden downstairs. So many people are walking. They're all our neighbors from this building. The way they look. Sobi. 1102 Brother Chong. At everyone, does anyone have a weapon? Damn it, I want to fight them. 307 Dr. Zhao. At 1102, Brother Chong, calm down. Don't fight them head on. Their numbers are unknown. The situation is bizarre. Survival comes first. 903 Old Joe. Where are the police? The army. Have all the damn people died? Collapse, despair, anger, helplessness. All sorts of emotions exploded on the small screen. This 20-story high-rise had become like an isolated island floating in a dark ocean, being swallowed bit by an invisible tide of terror. Wang Yifan clutched his phone tightly, his nails digging deep into his palm. The sharp pain allowed him to maintain a sliver of consciousness. I can't give up. Old Wang might still be alive, maybe just trapped somewhere. He couldn't just wait here to die. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down and think. What are these things afraid of? What are their patterns? He opened the group chat again, quickly scrolling through the earlier messages. 502 Xiao Mei. It seems to be particularly sensitive to sound. I accidentally knocked over a cup just now, and it started knocking on the door even harder. 703 Mrs. Lin. Light. They don't seem to like bright light. I shone a flashlight through the peephole, and it took a step back. Sensitive to sound? Averse to bright light? Also, Dr. Zhao had mentioned that if you don't respond, they might leave on their own after a while. Could this be considered a pattern? These fragmented pieces of information were like a few faint sparks in the darkness. Just then, a new, relatively calm message caught everyone's attention. 307 Dr. Zhao. At everyone I've tried to summarize the patterns. 1. It seems to be triggered by death or some kind of transformation. 2. Their behavior is fixed, knocking on the door, asking to borrow salt. 3. They are sensitive to sound and may react to bright light. 4. They lack proactive aggressive behavior based on current observation, acting more like they're executing some kind of program. 5. There may be an infection or mimicry effect. Be extremely vigilant of anyone around you behaving abnormally. 307 Dr. Zhao. Suggestions. 1. Maintain absolute silence. 2. Cover all light sources. Use bright light to probe or repel if necessary. 3. Store drinking water. Seal the cracks of your doors. Smell might be one of the indicators. 4. Wait for daylight. According to records, the activity level of most paranormal phenomena is related to the night. Daylight. Those two words struck like a bolt of lightning, splitting through the thick despair. Right? It shouldn't be long until dawn. As long as they could hold out until sunrise, there might be a chance. 1102 Brother Chong, right? Daylight. Brothers, hold on. It'll be okay once the sun is up. 502 Xiao Mei. Sobi. The dawn has to come. A faint but tangible glimmer of hope was rekindled among the survivors. The sounds of mutual encouragement in the group chat grew louder, as members shared information about the supplies they had and reminded each other of things to watch out for. Wang Yifan also roused his spirits. Following Dr. Zhao's advice, he found a wet towel and stuffed it tightly into the crack of the door, doing his best to block out the nauseatingly putrid smell. He checked his food and drinking water and placed usable weapons, a heavy wrench and kitchen knives, within easy reach. He also found a high-intensity flashlight and tested it. The light was blinding. After finishing all this, he once again approached the peephole. Outside the door, it was still pitch black. The voice-activated light did not turn on again, but the faint, shuffling sounds of many things moving seemed to have grown clearer, as if the entire building's hallways had been occupied by them. He retreated to the center of the living room, turned off his phone screen to save power, and in the absolute darkness and silence, tightly gripped the wrench and flashlight, his ears pricked for any sign of danger. Time crawled by, second by agonizing second. The sky outside the window seemed to really not be so dark anymore. At the edge of the ink-like darkness, a sliver of extremely faint, almost gray light was vaguely visible. Just at this darkest moment before the dawn, thud, 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 a series of violent and rapid bangs suddenly erupted from his security door. It was no longer the rhythmic knocking from before, but the frantic, loud thuds of bodies slamming against it. The door shook violently, and even the doorframe groaned in protest. It was back, and there wasn't just one. Wang Yifan could hear the chaotic, overlapping footsteps and that stiff whispering from outside the door. Had they found him, or had they lost patience? Wang Yifan's heart began to pound wildly again. He abruptly raised the wrench and high-intensity flashlight, aiming them at the door, every muscle in his body tense to the extreme. Open the door. Salt. Little Wang. Open the door. All sorts of distorted, monotonous voices mingled together, assaulting the door and his eardrums. Thud, thud. The lock emitted a grating sound of twisting metal that set his teeth on edge. Their strength was astounding. Hold on. It's almost dawn. Wang Yifan screamed frantically in his mind, his eyes glued to the door while constantly glancing towards the gradually graying sky through the gap in the curtains. Just in the nick of time, as the security door was about to be broken open, woo-woo, 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 a clear and piercing siren, approaching from a distance, tore through the pre-dawn silence like a sharp sword. Not just one, but many. The flashing red and blue lights of police cars shone through the gap in the curtains, casting rapidly moving patches of light on the living room walls. The banging and whispering outside the door came to an abrupt halt. Following, there was a flurry of chaotic, but rapidly receding, faint, and hurried footsteps. They retreated? Wang Yifan stood frozen, not daring to move, his ears catching the sounds from outside. The siren stopped downstairs, followed by the muffled sound of a loudspeaker and hurried footsteps. The daylight was now brightening at a visible rate, dispelling the last of the darkness. Trembling, he approached the peephole again. The hallway was empty. Only the slightly deformed security door and the few clear, grimy, water-stained scratch marks left on it proved that the terrifying moment just now had not been a hallucination. Was it over? His legs gave out, and he nearly collapsed to the floor. The sense of exhaustion that comes with surviving an ordeal washed over his entire body. He picked up his phone. The group chat had exploded, filled with emojis of ecstasy and tears. 1102 Brother Chong. The police are here. The police are here. We're saved. 502 Xiao Mei. They ran. I saw them run down the stairs. Oh my God. 903 Old Joe. Quick, open your doors. Let's go down and meet. 307 Dr. Zhao. At everyone, don't be hasty. Wait for the police to confirm it's safe. The situation might not be fully resolved yet. Wang Yifan looked at the excited messages in the group chat, then glanced at the bright daylight outside and the flashing police lights below. An extreme sense of fatigue and numbness enveloped him. He walked to the window and cautiously drew back the curtain. Downstairs were several police cars and an ambulance. Uniformed police officers and paramedics were bustling about nervously. A few shell-shocked neighbors were being helped out of the building entrance, embracing each other and weeping. His gaze searched anxiously, looking for any sign of old Wang. Nothing. The white sedan was still parked in the same spot, its doors still ajar. Just then his phone vibrated. It was a new WeChat message. From old Wang. Message. Yifan, I'm okay. The signal was bad in the garage, just got out. I see the police. Are you alright? I'm coming up now. Wang Yifan stared at the message, stunned for a few seconds. An indescribable, ice-cold, bone-chilling sensation slowly crept up his spine. He raised his head and looked downstairs again. Among the group of still-shaken survivors, supporting one another, he saw a familiar figure. Wearing the beige trench coat that Lao Wang had worn when she left last night, her head was down and her gait seemed a little too steady. She was walking towards the building's entrance at an unhurried pace. Under the bright morning sun, the figure lifted its head. From a dozen floors up, Wang Yifan couldn't make out her expression, but he could feel a gaze that pierced through the distance and the glass, locking precisely onto him. The phone screen lit up again. It was Lao Wang again. Open the door. I'm home. Wang Yifan stared intently at the familiar figure downstairs, his blood seeming to freeze in that instant. Lao Wang. No, that thing wearing Lao Wang's clothes, with Lao Wang's appearance, was looking up at him. Despite the distance obscuring the details, the feeling of being targeted, cold and clammy, penetrated the glass as if it were tangible and wrapped around him. On the phone screen, the words, "Open the door. I'm home," were like poisoned needles, stabbing into his eyes. Don't open it. Absolutely do not open the door again. His fingers trembled, barely able to hold the phone. He used all his strength to reply, Lao Wang. There are still a lot of police downstairs registering people. You should cooperate with the investigation down there first. I'm fine, I'm safe. He had to buy time. He had to be sure. The message was sent like a stone sinking into the sea. The Lao Wang downstairs didn't look down at her phone. She remained in her head-tilted posture, motionlessly watching the 15th floor. A few seconds later, a new message popped up. I'm tired. I want to come home and rest. Open the door. The tone was flat, carrying an unyielding stubbornness, just like Annie Zhang's tone when she wanted to borrow salt. Wang Yifan's heart pounded wildly, and cold sweat instantly soaked his back. He leaned against the wall and slowly slid to the floor, moving out of sight from the window. He didn't dare to look downstairs again. That gaze made him feel as if he had needles on his back. What should I do? What should I do? The police are right downstairs. He had to notify them. Lao Wang might already be, and this thing was about to mix in with the survivors. He snatched his phone, no longer posting in the residents' group chat, but directly finding the private number of the police officer in charge of their area, saved from a previous neighborhood dispute. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to explain the situation in the clearest, most concise language possible. Hello, Officer Liu. This is Wang Yifan from apartment 1501, building 15. It's an emergency. My wife, Wang Jing, might have been infected. or replaced. She's downstairs right now. She looks exactly like my wife, but she's acting abnormally, insisting that I open the door. I suspect she's the same as those things that were knocking last night. I'm requesting that you control her immediately. Examine her. I repeat, do not let her near the building entrance. Do not let her come upstairs. Officer Liu on the other end of the line was clearly also in a state of high tension and exhaustion. Hearing this bizarre description, he fell silent for 2 seconds, his tone serious. Mr. Wong, I understand you're in shock, but it's very chaotic downstairs right now, and we need to verify everyone's identity one by one to ensure all survivors are safe. Please remain calm. Lock your doors and windows. Our colleagues will handle. She is not a survivor. Wang Yifan was almost roaring in a low voice. Officer Liu, believe me, it's a fact that Annie Zhang died last night, right? The knocking last night was real, right? My wife. Her voice on the phone just now was wrong. She's downstairs right now. She's not looking at her phone, not listening to me, just repeating for me to open the door. Is that normal? There was some static on the other end, as if Officer Liu was communicating with his colleagues on walkie-talkie. After a moment, Officer Liu's voice came through again, much graver. Mr. Wong, we've noticed the woman you described. She is indeed a bit unusual. Our people are attempting to communicate with her. Please, you must stay inside. Absolutely do not open the door. We will handle it. The call was disconnected. Wang Yifan slumped to the floor, gasping for breath as if he had just run a marathon. The information was out. Would the police intercept Lao Wang? Could they tell the difference? He didn't dare to go near the window again. He could only prick up his ears, listening nervously to the commotion downstairs. The sirens had stopped, but he could faintly hear announcements from a megaphone and the noise of the crowd. Time passed, minute by minute, each second in agony. Suddenly, thud, thud, thud. A heavy, urgent pounding erupted from his security door again, more violent, more frenzied than the one before dawn. Open the door! It was no longer a flat tone, but a sharp, twisted roar. It was old Wang's voice, yet it was completely alien, filled with venom and desperation. It's come up. It broke through the police cordon. Or did the police fail to stop it? The door groaned in agony under the immense impact, the metal lock visibly deforming and bulging. Dust and flecks of paint trickled down from the edge of the doorframe. Terrified out of his wits, Wang Yifan scrambled back behind the living room sofa, raising a wrench and a high-intensity flashlight. He aimed them at the door, the blood in his veins turning to ice. It was getting in. Wang Yifan, open the door. Let me in. Outside, old Wang slammed against the door, shrieking, its fingernails scraping against the metal, producing a sound that set his teeth on edge. Just as Wang Yifan thought the door would be smashed open the next second, the pounding suddenly stopped. A dead silence fell outside the door. Only the severely deformed lock and several deep scratches proved that the earlier frenzy had not been a hallucination. Gone? Wang Yifan's heart pounded wildly. He didn't dare to relax for a second. He stared intently at the door, his ears straining for any sound. No footsteps, no sign of it leaving. An extremely ominous premonition enveloped him. Suddenly, an incredibly faint rustling, as if right beside his ear, came from the direction of the balcony. He whipped his head around. There, outside the sliding glass door of the balcony, a pale, twisted face was pressed tightly against the glass. It was old Wang. Her eyes were wide open, the black irises nearly filling the entire sockets, brimming with inhuman malice and madness. Her lips were stretched into an impossible arc, a malicious grin, as her hands were forcefully trying to pry open the seam of the balcony door. How? How did it get to the balcony? This is the 15th floor. Wang Yifan was so frightened his heart almost stopped. His balcony was enclosed, but between it and the balcony of the adjacent unit, 1502, there was only a narrow partition platform for the air conditioning unit. Did it climb over from next door? Old Wang began to slam its head against the balcony glass. Bang, bang, bang. The glass trembled as if it couldn't take much more. Wang Yifan's mind went blank, the instinct for survival overwhelming everything. He leaped up from behind the sofa, raised the high-intensity flashlight, aimed it at the terrifying face behind the glass door, and flicked the switch. Boom! An intensely blinding pillar of white light burst forth, like a sharp sword, piercing through the glass and striking Old Wong directly in the face. Arg! An inhuman, blood-curdling scream came from outside the balcony. Old Wong threw its arms up to shield its eyes. Its face, as if splashed with strong acid, actually began to emit wisps of white smoke. Its body convulsed violently as it staggered backward, nearly plummeting from the 15th floor. It works. The bright light really works. A jolt went through Wang Yifan. He kept his finger clamped on the flashlight's switch, locking the beam firmly onto Old Wong. In the intense light, Old Wong writhed and struggled in agony, letting out even sharper, more ear-piercing howls. It tried to break through the light to get closer to the glass door again, but the beam seemed to inflict immense pain and resistance, preventing it from moving forward. Just then, from the front door of Wang Yifan's apartment, came the sound of a key being inserted into the lock, followed by the forceful turning of the handle. Click! Clack! The police. They were finally here. They must have a key from property management or a spare. Police! What's the situation with the person inside? Officer Lu's urgent shout came from outside the door. I'm Fine. It's on the balcony. The strong light works on it. Wang Yifan yelled back, not daring to move the beam of light off Old Wong. The front door was thrown open, and several fully armed police officers holding riot shields and high-intensity flashlights rushed in. When they saw the scene on the balcony, they too sucked in a cold breath, but their training kicked in and they immediately sprang into action. Several more powerful beams of light shot towards Old Wong on the balcony at once. Under the concentrated illumination of multiple police-issue flashlights, Old Wong let out a final shriek filled with resentment and venom. Its body, like a melting wax figure, began to rapidly blur and turn transparent. Finally, with a poof, it dissolved into a cloud of gray-black smoke with the pungent stench of decay and disinfectant, dissipating into the early morning air. Only a few grimy scratches on the balcony glass were left to prove its existence. Everything, at last, fell completely silent. He collapsed to the floor, completely spent. The wrench and flashlight in his hands clattered to the ground. He gasped for air, drenched in a cold sweat, a sense of debilitating exhaustion washing over him as if he had just crawled back to the world of the living from hell. Officer Lu stepped forward, checked the balcony, and after confirming it was secure, signaled for his colleagues to put away their equipment. He looked at Wang Yifan, who was slumped on the floor, his expression a mixture of sympathy and deep gravity. Mr. Wang, you did very well. You stayed calm and exploited the weakness we speculated about. Officer Lu's voice was weary. Your wife, Ms. Wang Jing. We are very sorry. We found her car downstairs, but we couldn't find her. The thing just now. He didn't finish, but the implication was clear. Wang Yifan closed his eyes, a mixture of immense grief and the relief of survival, leaving him speechless. Epilogue. 3 days later. Inside a temporary shelter, Wang Yifan sat with a few other survivors from Building 1501 who had been confirmed safe, awaiting further arrangements and psychological evaluation. The official explanation to the public was mass hysteria combined with hallucinations and abnormal behavior caused by an unknown gas leak, and the news was blockaded. But Wang Yifan knew the truth was far from it. Annie Zhang was truly dead. Old Wang was missing, officially defined, and everything he had experienced that night and morning was by no means a hallucination. The residents' group chat had been forcibly disbanded. A sense of distance and wariness had grown among the surviving neighbors. No one dared to speak of the details of that night, as if it were a taboo that could not be touched. Wang Yifan looked at the bright sunlight outside the window, but felt no warmth. In his pocket, he carried Old Wang's phone. The police had found in her car downstairs that day, its screen shattered, unable to power on. It was the only physical object she had left behind. He would occasionally touch his pocket subconsciously, as if he could still feel the outline of the phone. Just then, his fingers touched a cold, hard object. It wasn't the phone. He froze for a moment and took the thing out of his pocket. It was a small packet. It was crudely wrapped in a piece of ordinary white kitchen paper towel, as if stuffed in hastily. His heart skipped a beat with a sense of foreboding, and he slowly unwrapped the paper. Inside was a small pinch of pure white, crystalline salt. On the inside of the paper, written in what might have been lipstick or blood, was a line of crooked, almost illegible small characters. Next is you. Wang Yifun's breath caught, and the blood in his veins seemed to reverse its flow. This packet of salt, when, by whom? Was it placed in his pocket? Was it the dissipated old Wang? Or other things in the building? Or was it one of the survivors? A vast, silent fear, like a cold tide, completely engulfed him again. The sun was still bright, and people came and went into shelter. But he knew that the nightmare behind that door had never truly ended. They had just changed their method, still following him like a shadow. And whose door would be knocked on next? That packet of salt. The pinch of dazzlingly white crystals, carrying the aura of death, felt like a red-hot branding iron, searing Wang Yifun so intensely he almost cried out. He suddenly clenched the paper packet in his palm, its rough texture grating on his frayed nerves. Next is you. The crooked handwriting, like a curse, was deeply etched into his mind. When? Who? Was it the last malevolent thought left by the old Wang that had dissipated in the bright light? Or was it in the chaotic moment before the police rushed in that something had silently approached him and slipped this death notice into his pocket? Or perhaps, among the survivors in this shelter, who appeared shaken and were comforting each other, something else had already blended in? They looked human. They could cry, laugh, and feel fear, but inside were they cold, hollow shells executing some unknown program? He shot his head up, his eyes darting around the shelter's hall like a frightened deer. The mother gently comforting her child, the old man staring blankly out the window, the young couple whispering words of encouragement to each other, and the weary medical staff and volunteers bustling about. Every face in Wang Yifun's eyes was now veiled with a shadow of suspicion. Were their expressions too calm? Was there a hint of imperceptible stiffness hidden in the depths of their eyes? The venomous snake of suspicion slithered into his mind, hissing, "Mr. Wang, are you all right?" A gentle voice asked from beside him. Wang Yifun jumped in fright, almost leaping to his feet, the packet of salt nearly falling from his hand. He looked in terror toward the source of the voice. It was Dr. Zhao from 307, the psychologist responsible for their area. He looked equally haggard, but his eyes held the concern of a doctor and the shared pity of a fellow survivor. I be fine. Wang Yifun forced his racing heart to calm, hiding the hand clutching the salt packet tightly behind his back, his nails digging deep into his palm. Just a little shaken up. Dr. Zhao nodded in understanding and patted his shoulder. It's a normal reaction. We're all the same. Try to relax. It's safe here. The officials have done a thorough sweep. Safe? Wang Yifun sneered inwardly. If it was really safe here, where did this packet of salt come from? Dr. Zhao. Was he really the same Dr. Zhao who had calmly analyzed and given advice in the group chat? He didn't dare to stay any longer, afraid he would lose control and betray his unease. He mumbled a vague reply, made an excuse about going to the restroom, and fled the hall. Entering the empty, quiet restroom, he locked the stalled door from the inside. Only then did he lean his back against the cold partition and gasp for air. He opened his palm. The packet of salt and the line of text came into view again. He couldn't make a scene. He made an instant judgment. If there was truly a hidden danger in this shelter, raising an alarm would only alert the enemy and could even make him an immediate target. The officials were clearly trying their best to cover up the truth. They wouldn't believe, or rather, were unwilling to believe, that such an unnatural event was still ongoing. He had to rely on himself. He carefully folded the paper packet again and stuffed it into the innermost pocket of his pants, tight against his skin. The cold touch was a constant reminder of the desperate situation he was in. For the next few hours, Wang Yifun was like a startled bird. He forced himself to act like the other survivors, undergoing questioning, a simple psychological evaluation, and receiving food and water. But all his senses were heightened to their peak as he carefully observed everyone around him, looking for any subtle, discordant detail. Did the corner of that mother's mouth twitch unnaturally for a moment as she comforted her child? Were the eyes of the old man staring out the window too vacant, unfocused for too long? Was the conversation of that whispering couple too repetitive, lacking genuine emotion? He found that the more he observed, the more suspicious things seemed, and his fear grew like a snowball rolling downhill. He even began to doubt himself. Could this packet of salt be a hallucination from his own mental breakdown? But the cold touch and the red mark on his palm from the edge of the paper felt so real. As evening approached, the temporary shelter announced that after preliminary screening and assessment, some survivors could be picked up by friends or family or transferred to long-term shelters with better conditions. The rest would need to remain under observation. Wang Yifan saw his name on the list of those who could leave. He felt no joy, only a deeper unease. Leaving here meant losing the relative protection and monitoring of a group, and it meant he would have to face the potentially more dangerous world outside alone. But he had no choice. If he stayed here, tormented by the pervasive feeling of being watched and his own suspicion, he would go mad sooner or later. After completing the tedious paperwork and retrieving his personal belongings, a simple plastic bag containing his phone charger and a small amount of cash, Wang Yifan followed a few other cleared survivors toward the shelter's exit, led by a staff member. The afterglow of the sunset coated the building in a warm golden light, but it couldn't dispel the chill in his heart. He kept his head down, blending into the crowd, trying to minimize his presence as much as possible. Just as they were about to walk through the main gate and step onto the street outside, a middle-aged man walking a short distance ahead of Wang Yifan suddenly stopped. Wang Yifan recognized him. It was Brother Chong from the 11th floor, 1102 Brother Chong, the one who had been shouting in the group chat about fighting for his life. Now, Brother Chong's body was trembling slightly. Then very slowly, bit by bit, he turned his head. His face showed no relief of a survivor, only an extreme, twisted terror. His eyes were wide enough to split. His pupils shrunk to pinpoints, staring intently at Wang Yifan. No, at something behind Wang Yifan, in the direction of the shelter's main hall. His lips trembled as if he wanted to say something, but only a hoarse HH sound escaped. Everyone's attention was drawn by his strange behavior, and they followed his gaze to look back. In the main hall, the lights were on. Some survivors who hadn't left yet were sitting or standing, and medical staff moved among them. Everything looked normal. Brother Chong, what's wrong with you? A staff member asked, approaching him. Chong jolted back as if scalded, his face ashen. Cold sweat instantly beaded on his forehead. He shook his head frantically, stammering, "No, nothing. I saw it wrong. I saw it wrong." He didn't look at anyone else. As if a vicious ghost were chasing him from behind, he stumbled and scrambled out of the settlement's gate, quickly disappearing around the street corner. A commotion went through the crowd. They exchanged bewildered glances, not understanding what had happened. Only Wang Yifan. When Chong turned back, and the crowd followed his gaze, he didn't look toward the back of the hall. His eyes fell upon Dr. Zhao, who was standing at the edge of the hall, smiling gently and waving goodbye to them. At the moment Chong showed extreme fear, the moment everyone looked towards the back of the hall. The gentle, comforting smile that Dr. Zhao always wore, the curve of his lips for a fraction of a second, stiffened and inhumanly, widened by an extremely subtle, almost imperceptible degree, like a preset program revealing a minuscule flaw. Then, it instantly returned to normal, so fast that anyone would have mistaken it for a trick of the light. But Wang Yifan had caught it. In that instant, he felt as if he had been plunged into an ice cellar, the blood in his veins running cold. He understood what Chong was afraid of. He also understood that the packet of salt and the words "you're next" were not pointing to some distant, unknown future. Judgment Day had never ended. It had merely shifted from violent door-pounding and roaring to silent infiltration and lurking. He took one last look at the still-smiling Dr. Zhao, then lowered his head and, like the other confused survivors, walked silently, step by step, out of the settlement's gate. The air outside carried the chill of the night. He stood on the street, watching the bustling traffic and flashing neon lights. The city was still prosperous and noisy, as if the tragedy that had occurred in that apartment building were just a distant nightmare. But he knew it wasn't. He clenched the cold packet of salt in his pocket. It was here. They were here. Among every seemingly normal pedestrian walking by, on the face of the clerk in the brightly lit convenience store at the corner, behind the window of a speeding taxi. Everywhere. Would he be next? Or had this screening and replacement already begun, silently, in the city's unknown corners? Wang Yifan raised his head and looked at the skyline, sinking into darkness at the edge of the city, his eyes filled with nothing but endless coldness and vigilance. He did not go home. That home was no longer safe. He turned, took a step, and merged into the bustling crowd on the street. Like a ghost, hiding his own fear and also searching for his own kind and the other kind hidden in the sea of people. This war had extended from behind the door to the front of the entire world, and he had already picked up his weapon, that packet of pure white, deadly salt, and a will to survive that was colder than the salt itself.